Everybody, welcome back to another Quick Tie. My name is Tim Hepworth here with Fly Fishing Bover Outfitters and Thursday Night Live Fly Tying. And this Quick Tie is brought to you by Western Canada Fly Fishing Guide School. You can see the website down below me here. If you have any interest in checking that out, just go head over to the website and you can get some information on it. So tonight we are tying out of Season 6, Episode 7, and we are tying up get the right one here. It's going to show it for me. Maybe. There we go. See it below there. That's the Kreelex Minnow. That's what we're going to be working on today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. Click the little bell icon when you see it. That's going to allow you to see every video that we bring out every week. It's just going to notify you, so you'll have it there. So don't forget, if you're part of the replay squad and you're here watching this now, just drop a comment. Let us know that you're here. We'd love to know that you guys are taking advantage of these videos and that they're getting watched and that they're useful. And if you have any tips, let us know. We're always here to listen and to see if we can improve. Okay, well, I'm going to be tying out of my Season 6 kit. If you're doing the same, then you're going to have a package that looks something like this. It's going to say Episode 7 on it. If you're tying out of our individual kits, that's awesome as well. Nothing's going to change. Materials are the same. And then if you aren't tying out of any of our kits, you can still head over to our website and you can find the fly recipe there, and you can just follow along with your own materials and get this tie flied up. Okay, let's head on over to the vise and take a peek at this fly. So this is what we got going tonight. This is the Kreelex Minnow. Very simple streamer pattern, easy to tie, very effective, at least in the watersheds that we're fishing a lot. A very, very good fly. So if you go ahead and you open up your kit, you're gonna see in the back, you've got one you're gonna have possibly different colors. If it's always gold, but there might be a green or there might be a pearl or white, just depending on the package that you have. Just tie with the gold as being the same gold that I'm gonna tie into this one. So we're gonna have that be on the bottom of the fly. So as you can see, as this fly is oriented currently, those dumbbell eyes are sitting up on top of the hook shank. So in actuality, this is gonna fish like this. Those dumbbell eyes are gonna be down. So when you tie in that bottom color as your gold, it's actually gonna fish as the top color on this pattern. We like the little bit lighter belly color, and we have a little darker up top. So let's dive right in. I'm gonna go ahead and get my hook placed in my vise. So this is a long shank streamer hook. Pretty common, very similar to what we would use on like a Clouser minnow. Okay, make sure that's good and fixed in there. I'm going to be tying with some white UTC 140, something a little bit heavier for these streamer patterns. You could get away with something lighter as well, but I like a little bit heavier thread. So once we get that started on there, we're just going to come in here and we can trim out our tag end, get that out of the way. I'm just going to lay a nice little thread base down kind of up here at the top of the fly. And we'll get to that bottom part here in a second. So I'm gonna bring myself back kind of to about the quarter way mark on the fly, maybe a little bit less. It's gonna drive me crazy if it's not perfectly straight. It's a little better. Okay, so we have dumbbell eyes in here for you. You got these painted eyes. What we're gonna do is we're gonna be tying this in first before we put in any other material. So when I measure this off the back of that hook eye, I want about 2 spaces. Okay, it makes it easier when we're tying in the materials at the end. I'm going to place this right on top. I'm going to get a wrap of thread kind of around it a couple times, and it's going to spin it kind of into place. Then I got to keep fingers on it all the time so it's not going to move around. And then I'm just going to start doing some cross wraps, starting to secure this down. And once you kind of get a few in, then you can let it go, and then you're just going to work on it. I'm going to do some figure 8s. I'm going to do some just around the hook itself, some just around the eyes themselves. Once we feel like we got that good and secure and it's not going anywhere, you just want to make sure that they're as straight as possible on that hook shank. So if I look at it from the top, you just want it to be about as straight as possible. So they look even. Just make sure that when you're moving it, it doesn't move at all. So if you place some fingers on it, you just want it secure enough that it's not going to move easily on its own. Once we feel like we got that in there, it's good and secure, not moving, we can move on to our first material. So the first thing we're going to tie in, I'm going to tie in the lighter color first. So I'm going to go to that lighter color Kreelex material or flash material. Doesn't have to be the specific actual Kreelex flash. Tonight we're tying with this kind of pearl colored flash. This is what we're going to use for the tail of our fly. So this actually ends up building the tail and one of the top sections. So I just cut off a piece that's probably be about 4-ish inches long. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this on top here, and I'm going to kind of gauge how far my tail is going to be, which I want it to be, about not quite a full hook shank in length off the back, but close. something like that. Don't need it to be super long. This is already a bit of a long fly because of that long shank, so I'll just find what I'm comfortable with for my tail, somewhere in there. And then what I'm gonna do is right behind the eye here, I'm gonna get that first kind of securing wrap down, make sure I'm happy with that. So I'll get my first wrap down right behind the eyes here. I'm gonna pinch it nice and tight. I'm gonna lift up on all the material that I can in this tail section, and I'm just gonna start doing some kind of spiraling thread wraps. I don't wanna completely cover up the material, I just wanna have a nice wraps down to about where if I left it there, it'd be hanging right at the barb of the hook. Then I'm just gonna do the same thing, work it back up this way. I can let go of that there. There's my tail tied in. If we need to trim it a bit at the end, we can. We have the ability to do so. Then I'm just gonna cross my thread back in front of my dumbbell eyes, and I'm gonna secure this right here as well. So once I got it there, do a couple of good wraps, make sure it's secured, and then I'm gonna fold this back over once again, okay? And I'm gonna get my thread to come back under the dumbbell eyes, so I'm back behind them again, and I'm gonna secure this one more time right there. Get a good number of thread wraps in, so that's not gonna move on you at all. Okay, and that's what we should be left with at this point. So then this is actually gonna be the body of the fly, and then we're gonna tie in another portion for the body of fly on the other side of the hook. But at this point, I'm gonna trim this up a little bit, this guy here. So I want this to extend. Basically, I don't want it to be anywhere near as long as the tail. So I want it to come here. I'm gonna trim it off basically right at the back of the hook bend. So I'm right in there, okay? So we've got a defined separation between the tail and that body material. So we've got that like that. Now all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pass my thread back under my dumbbell eyes again, so my thread's up here at the front. Then I'm gonna flip this guy upside down. And now I'm gonna be tying in the other color of material. So in my case here, this is gonna be the gold. You should have some gold in yours too. And that'll be technically gonna be the top of the fly, but we're gonna tie it in here on the bottom. So I'm gonna get a hold of this. Now the amount of material you're gonna use is really up to you. You can tie them a little thinner. So I've got an example of a pretty thin one here. Okay, that's a very thin one. You just kind of make the decision on how much material you want to use. If you use more, you're going to not get as many flies out of each particular kit, but you can still do one about the size that I'm doing today, and you're going to have enough to do quite a few of these. So this time, when I tie this in, we're not too concerned about worrying how long it is anymore on the backside when we tie it in, because we're not tying in a tail again. This is just going to be cut off at the same length as that pearl is there that we did for the body. So I'm just going to kind of pick a place knowing that I've got enough. I've kind of cut mine again in that like 4 to 5 inches. I'm gonna fold it around my thread like so. So I just have it folded. So now they kind of all come together as one clump. I'm gonna bring it up right on top, kind of closer to the eye this time. So I've got the ability to wrap back on top of it. I'm gonna put a few wraps right there so it can't move. Then I'm gonna lay this back, and I'm gonna get some thread wraps right up on top of the material there. So you can see just behind the eye, I'm actually pinching that material. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna cause it to wanna sit rearward. And then all I wanna do is basically make a nice little ramp for the head here, for the kind of the nose of the fly. So I wanna cover up all that flash. So I feel like I got a nice little ramp there. Looks pretty good. Can leave that like so. Now I wanna pick all of this gold back up, and I kind of want to pull it down next to the fly, whether the front or the back, and measure it so that we have a gauge on it being the same length or pretty close to the same length as that white was on the other portion of the body. It's a little harder to cut it again after, so make sure you're pretty close to what you want on this first cut. And if they're not exactly the same length, it's not the end of the world. And now this guy, we want to just make sure that that material kind of splits evenly on either side of the hook when we stroke it back like this. As we can see there, it actually matched it pretty good, pretty close to the same length. If you've got any ones that are kind of hanging out at the wrong length, just trim them out. I like to moisten my fingers a little bit. This is a synthetic material, so it's not really gonna act, it's not gonna always look super good sitting in the vise because it needs water going over it to kind of form it into what it's gonna look like. So once I get to here, I'm just gonna flip this back up, and I'm gonna whip finish my fly right here. So I'm gonna do 3 or 4 turn whip finish. I am gonna add a little bit of resin up here behind the eye as well. Just gonna do it twice. Try to get any materials that are in there stuck out. can trim out that thread. And what I'm gonna do is I really like to keep these as durable as possible. This should be able to catch you quite a few fish. So I'm gonna use some of my Solar Bone Dry, and I'm just gonna put a very light coating of this UV resin all over my thread wraps. Now you can use any kind of resin you want here. It doesn't have to be UV, that's for sure. Even a touch of super glue, whatever you like. I'm just gonna use this, I'm gonna cure it. And there we go. There's our Kreelex Minnow. So if you did it kind of like me, I'm gonna trim that tail just a smidge. Like so. This isn't meant to be a super long fly. It's tied on that long shank. And we just want it to look as proportioned as this is. Sometimes, like I did here, I like to put a little bit more gold as my top color. It gives a little bit more bulk. So there's a little bit more up top than there is in the bottom. Which is totally acceptable. But play with the colors, play with the schemes. There's lots of different colors you can do this in. This happens to be one of my favorite, as is green and gold. Those are probably my two favorite colors of this fly. I know it doesn't look like much, it's just a lot of flash on a hook, but trust me on this one, this is one you're gonna wanna give a try. Okay guys, that has been the Kreelex Minnow. Again, my name is Tim Hepworth here with Fly Fishing Boat Outfitters and Thursday Night Live Fly Tying. We want to thank Western Canada Fly Fishing Guide School for sponsoring this quick tie for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll be back next week with a couple more flies.